Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Craig and Dave. We have an exciting one for you today. Without further ado, I'm going to bring onto the stream Jack Rafferty. Hello, Jack.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Jack is, believe it or not, 14. So you're not even in your GCSEs yet. Oh, you've literally just year 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jack, now let's see if I get this right. I've got a banner. Jack was a finalist in the BAFTA Young Game Designer of the Year 2021. If you're one of our GCSE A-level students watching this, prepare to have your mind blown. This young lad is 14, and seriously, what he's managed to produce is absolutely phenomenal. Now, look, commiserations for not winning in the final, but amazing achievement for getting that far. And I've blown away at what you've produced. So there's a number, for those people who don't know, and I admit I didn't know about it, the Young Game Designer of the Year, and I'm just going to share something myself here, number of different categories. So which is great because obviously as you go up in school, you've got more experience. So you were competing in the 10 to 14-year-old category.
Yeah.
So I guess that sort of year 7s or just very end of primary school up to before GCSEs, and some tough competition in there. And the game that you submitted was called Rollin, and I know we're going to have a little look at that in a bit. But I think before we do that, I just really want to hear from you, because what you've done is amazing at just 14. So what got you into? I mean, not even doing computer science as a GCSE. So what got you into it? It's a hobby. You know, where's the interest come from? How did you find out about the Unreal Engine? Tell us a bit about that.
It starts a long way back. So I started playing games when I was about 5 or 6 on my mum's laptop.
Yeah.
And when I went into year 3, there were 2 clubs available, and one was coding club and one was the sports club. And I was going to go into the sports club, actually. One of my friends was going into the coding club, so I went there instead because my friend was going when I was 7, and I absolutely loved it because we were using Scratch at the time, and I always wanted to make a game. You know, I'd like draw stuff down, but I never knew that I could actually do it. I thought it was just some games just kind of spontaneously appeared.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
that reminds me of my students' A-level projects. They think they're just going to spontaneously appear as well.
And it's a lot of hard work and practice, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, with Scratch, it started off with just, simple maze games and stuff. And, well, I don't know if I can get one up now, actually. Would you like that?
Yeah, you can do. You can find an early one. So did you say, while you're finding that, did you say that was in year 7 or when you were 7?
When I was 7, yeah.
Right. So I mean, this just shows, I mean, for teachers watching as well, this goes to show, if you've got teachers that are infused at a primary school level, what a difference it can make. And it's challenging, obviously, getting everything into the curriculum at that stage, but you're obviously very fortunate there to, coding opportunity, playing with Scratch at 7. So by the time you hit secondary school, you probably found a lot of students who didn't have anywhere near as exposure to computer science and game design as you did. So I'm trying to think, year 7, because shows how old I am now. Sorry, 7 years old. That's it's not even junior school, is it? That's sort of the 2nd or 3rd year of, just above reception, sort of year 3.
Yeah, I think this is one of my first ever projects, if I can share that.
Yeah, let me...
I'll get that up now.
Yeah, you should be able to share another screen.
No, I can only show one screen at a time. I can just... If I stop that one and then add... And, this one. There we go.
Brilliant.
Jack's feeling a lot less pressure getting the technology to work than teachers stood at the whiteboard.
So this is one of the very first games that you made off the back of this sort of coding club at 7 years old from your primary school.
This is one of the tutorials that I did. I'm not sure if it'll still work, but you press the left, you automatically move forward. And yep, it still works. So you just kind of control this little mouse-type robot. And if you go inside here, it's all very simple. This is pretty much all the coding. And the way that you did it is that you basically drew the levels in Microsoft Paint. And yeah, that's the game.
But there you go. Go back to that code screen again with the blocks.
Yeah.
But there you yeah. So, I mean, there you are, obviously, at 7 years old, having been exposed to Scratch through this coding club. And there you are learning about, by the looks of it, iteration and selection and coding concepts. Right. So take us from there. So you've got into this at 7. How do you go from there to finding out and entering the, BAFTA Young Code Game Designer of the Year and getting to a finalist?
Well,
I mean, that's amazing.
When I was, I think it was 10 or 11, in year 6, I read about it in a magazine, and I entered back then, and I actually got nominated then as well.
Okay.
So I can actually find that. Where is it? It's a long way.
That's the last year of primary school we're talking about.
Yeah, it was in 2018 that I made it. Oh, there's so much stuff here. I have no idea where I put it.
Filing system to me.
It's all right. Yeah, it's okay if you can't find it. So
yeah.
Okay, so you entered back in sort of year 6, and that would have been the same category, the 10 to 14.
Yeah, same category.
You made it through to...
Yeah, I made it through to the final then. It was a game where you had to solve fractions to beat monsters, kind of like an educational game.
Which sounds just like some of the A-level projects our students want to do as well.
And then after that, I took a bit of a break because I was in comp, and I went to the comp coding club as well. But the comp coding club was basically the same as my primary school one. We were still using Scratch, and it was the same tutorials because I think it was the same organization that provided the tutorials. So I took a bit of a break then, and then I discovered Unity. Because I think Unity was my first introduction, because BAFTA gave me like a Unity Pro 6 months kind of package. And back then I just could not get my head around it whatsoever. It was just so complicated. And at the time, the language just seemed so different, So then I took a break from that. And then I kind of fell off coding for a bit. And then lockdown struck. And I kind of got back into it. And by that point, we were doing some coding in school, basic kind of Python algorithms. And I started watching just YouTube tutorials online and stuff like that. And I slowly got there. And then I just thought, right, this game engine is good, but I'm not sure. So I basically searched up game engines, and I saw Unreal Engine on the list, and I saw that and I was like, oh, I've heard of that before, because so many games, it comes up at the start.
Sure. Yeah.
So then I downloaded that and got into it, and it was very similar to Scratch because of the blueprint system with the blocks, and I kind of found that easier. And I'm starting to gravitate a bit more towards Unity again now, because I get the coding more since I'm in computer science now. But Unreal Engine was just so useful for me. And then, I made the game that got nominated this year, actually.
Well, I'm going to jump in there then, that section. Just going to interrupt. This is fascinating, Jack. So I'm just going to bring people's attention there. If you're a student watching GCA level, he developed this in the Unreal Engine. And like you said, so many games that we download and play. I'm a big fan of the first-person shoot-'em-up franchise, and I play all the Doom games. And you're right, at the start, Unreal Engine 4. So the game you submitted for the finalists was developed in the Unreal Engine, and I think you've got a screen share there as well, haven't you? You can give us of the actual game that you submitted for your final. Here you go. So I'll pop that on and just get rid of that banner. So what was the name of your game, and what did it do?
It's called Rollin, and it's a rage game. It's inspired by stuff like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy and stuff like that. Just really hard, kind of feels unfair, but once you kind of get to understand it, you just slowly whittle away at it.
So easy to learn, difficult to master. Yeah.
Very easy to die.
Yeah.
Give us the demo, Jack. Let's have a look at you playing your own
demo.
game.
The volume might be a little bit loud on it.
No pressure, mind, but we're expecting a performance here.
So this is the game. You just kind of roll around like this.
Oh, I think that might have popped up another window that we're not sharing.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Right. Incidentally, while Jack's just re-sharing that, you can play this game yourself. The website I showed you earlier has all the games from the finalists, and you can download them and play them.
There we are.
Here we go.
Might be a little bit loud, but yeah. So you just kind of roll around, and as you can see, you can't see my inputs, but when I let go, the ball keeps on rolling. So there's a lot of momentum kind of involved, because it all uses physics objects. So you kind of slip and slide all over the place. And so this is me changing directions. It takes an age to kind of get back around. So then you can jump like this.
Ooh.
And as you can see instantly in the water. But you can kind of cheese this level a little bit because of the momentum again. If you build up enough momentum, you can just go right there. But again, here I am.
We need another go.
Struggling with the tutorial.
Oh, this is the tutorial level.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the tutorial levels. So you can see.
I'm feeling stressed just watching this now.
You can step on this to advance. And there we go. So one thing with this is that I didn't intend for there to be wall running in this game, but it kind of just happened because of the momentum again. So, I can just kind of do that. Right. So I hit it. I fell into the water, but I hit it, so it counts. And these boxes, I feel like I should have used these boxes a bit more, actually. They appear one time here and nowhere else. I kind of added them in just as a rigid body, and then in the water again.
And that frequently happens in games design. You set out with an objective in mind, and then as you come to sort of code it and play it, there's an interesting side effect that you hadn't really thought of.
Yeah.
And it's so good that you're like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm going to keep that mechanic in the game. So this idea of, like you say, being able to sort of wall run, that you hadn't thought about including initially, but just came about as you were sort of developing the game and thought, oh, that's pretty cool. We'll leave that in. As I say, that happens all the time. I mean, Craig and I, because we're so old, we talk about Space Invaders and things like that, and the same thing happened with Space Invaders, because it was never intended that as you shot the invaders, they started to speed up, and the only reason they speed up is because the CPU has less work to do the fewer invaders it has to render on the screen. So naturally, they speed up because there are fewer of them to process. So these little side effects that you get are really interesting. This is fantastic. Show us the blueprint and the coding sort of mechanism behind it, Jack, because we're interested in seeing this. I don't know about you, Craig, but I've not had a fiddle with the Unreal Engine. I've known about it for years, and I've had students, dabble with it in the past. But I've had time to invest
I've had two students use Unity before, but I've never had any use Unreal.
Yeah. So talk us through it, Jack.
Here we are in the editor. It's just got kind of simple look around controls. And then down here, we've got all the folders. And then here we've got them. Let's have a look at the ground blueprint. So this ground blueprint, this is a comment box. So this comment box, you just right click and just search up. I think if you just type in comment, it will appear. But this coding basically says the event actor begin overlap. So that's when something overlaps with this item, which in this case is the water. I called it ground though. It casts to the ball, the physics ball blueprint. And then it has a screen fade widget on it. So it creates a screen fade widget. So as you can see, the class is here. As to the viewport. And then, so that's the kind of fading to black. And then it delays for 2 seconds. And then it loads the same level that it was just in. So that basically just reloads the level, so it sends you to the start. So if I find here's screen fade. So as you can see, it's just a black PNG. If you look at the graph, when it gets when it's constructed, it just plays an animation, which is somewhere. But the animation is just changing the alpha level of the screen to just slowly fade to black.
Find that out. Yeah.
So yeah, the really cool thing is that they can communicate, and it's really easy to kind of follow as well because you've just got these kind of lines here.
Yeah.
So this is the coding for the rolling. It's fairly simple. It's just adding rolling basically, and we've got the variables here. And these little eye open things mean that they're public. That means they're public. And so this is just re-enabling jumping on landing. So this is just on the event hit, you just can jump to true. So, and then jump can only happen if, so this is a branch to see if we can jump. So then you just have the condition and just attach the Boolean here. And then that's how it works. So it's very similar to Scratch, actually, how the coding works in Unreal.
Wow.
That's interesting. So is everything in this game achieved then via, those tools and the boxes and connect them together? Have you had to write any sort of like scripting or raw code yourself, or was that all
for
supported
this game,
by the team?
There has been no raw code written at all. You can choose to use C++, but I've never used that for any of my Unreal projects because you can do pretty much the same stuff with it. It's just like condensed C++ in a way.
It just goes to show how with modern, IDEs, with modern development environments like this, how you can achieve impressive results with very to little, coding experience. Although saying that, all the way through there, you are using coding terms like a constructor and Boolean and classes. And is that just through knowledge of using this product, or is that because you've been picking up bits of computer science theory along the lines, or?
It's kind of through this, but it's also through just kind of knowledge of coding in general. From computer science and stuff like that, and from Unity actually, because a lot of the terms are the same from Unity to
of course,
Unreal. Like a Boolean's a Boolean, no matter what coding language you're using. So,
exactly.
And what about the assets here, Jack? So you've obviously got some wooden panels and the water, and you've got the ball. Where do they come from?
Unreal is actually really cool. This ball, the ball texture, and the kind of veneer texture for the wood, as you can see down here, and this wood here, it's all part of, believe it or not, the Unreal starter content. So when you create a new project, you have an option to enable starter content, and it takes up a ton of storage. I would only ever advise using it if, you really need assets, as I did, but because it takes up 5 gigabytes of storage. But it's very useful because you have these high quality textures with reflection maps and all this stuff just built in and free to use. So as you can see here, we've got the textures here.
And of course, the advantage of using something like the Unreal Engine or Unity, or with a lot of our A-level students, we use something called default or default. The advantage of using these tools, these engines, is you were talking about the unexpected side effects earlier of momentum and adding in wall running. Well, of course, these things handle all that complex real-world physics for you.
Yeah,
Go on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In Scratch, I remember making a platformer was the hardest thing ever because you had to program in the physics engine. Yeah. And if you can make a platformer in Scratch, you were like the coding master, because you had to program in a whole physics engine. And I figured it out from a tutorial, actually, that it was actually pretty simple. You just have a variable that resets whenever you hit the ground. And then when you're in the air, it goes up and up and up, and that's the amount that the Y value decreases to pull it down. But I don't think I figured that out until year 7 or 8. But
I think you were doing well. What's really interesting, sorry to interrupt, Jack, what's really interesting hearing you speak is, although or this may be different now, although there's zero handwritten raw code here, the way you've been talking, although from year 7, shows a real great level of maturity and experience with computational thinking. You know, the way you kind of break down the problem and understand it, and that is half the challenge. I mean, the irony is this project that you've got here wouldn't pass an A-level project because it's got no written code. But but the computational thinking skills that you've got behind all this and the way you were just talking there are harder to get than to learn to write raw code. And of course, the reason you have got that level is because you've been doing it as a hobby since you were 7 years old. And you probably don't even think about it now. It's just kind of natural, the way you think, oh, I want this to happen and therefore that needs to happen. So I'm going to need a Boolean. I'll check that. You know, your mind now thinks in a computational way, which will make you fantastic. You know, so you learn actual text-based programming languages. That really, Dave, isn't it? That's the hard bit.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed, you know, not just on, you know, this and how well you've sort of independently learned things and how well you're able to articulate what you've done and how it works, but your use of computing terminology without even thinking about it, where you say, here's a selection and here's an iteration and here's a Boolean and a Boolean's a Boolean, you know, no matter what you're using. And just that command of the terminology of computer science, you know, is really fluent, and you've got that through playing and having experience and seeing how concepts in one you know, platform like Scratch then carry over to Unreal, carry over to Unity, and you know, these things are all very, very similar. I'm intrigued in how you're finding learning Python, because obviously you've gone from a very sort of visual approach here with Scratch and then into the Unreal Engine, and I'm interested in how well you're learning and adapting to, you know, sort of raw Python. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Well, we did Python in year 8, but we've moved on to Visual Basic now. But I'm finding it actually pretty easy because these visual programming languages, they're designed to help you move into the text-based programming languages. And I just find that really cool how, you know, you're like, oh, wait a second, these lines of code kind of look like the Scratch blocks, you know? And it just kind of moves on from there. And then in no time, you're just coding. So the other day, I managed to make in computer science noughts and crosses that can detect if you win or lose or not. And it detects the player's turn and all that using Windows Forms. So
so this is it, isn't it? It's about that transition of knowledge, knowing that something was possible in one IDE or platform, and then thinking, okay, well, this is surely possible in this IDE or this platform, and it just becomes a question of transitioning that knowledge. And students are always surprised when, you know, they'll ask me questions like, how many languages can you program in then, Dave? And I say, well, how many do you want me to program in? If you're talking about fluency and just being able to sit down and, you know, write a program, you know, through my fingertips, then possibly, you know, 3 or 4 languages maybe that I'm completely fluent with. But if you show me a language that I'm not familiar with, I'll pick it up in 24 hours. And students are often really surprised about that. And I say, well, the thing is that once you understand that all programming really is taking a problem, breaking it down into its constituent parts, and realizing that there are really about 7 different structures, and everything else is kind of just fluff and making things easier. As long as you understand that there are, you know, variables and arrays, let's say, as long as you understand that there are objects, as long as you understand that there are selections, iterations, inputs and outputs, then really it's just a question of putting all those things in the right order in order to solve your problem. So really interesting listening to you about your journey into text-based programming.
If you want, I can show you the first game that I've completed recently using text-based programming.
Sure. Yeah.
You'd be interested in that? Right. Okay. I shall share that now. Window. Here we go. So I've used the Godot engine for this one.
Okay.
So this one is a very kind of hands-off engine. It doesn't compute much. It has physics, but it's a new engine on the block. It's kind of
What did you say again? Sorry.
Godot, G-O-T.
Yeah.
No, G-O-D-O-T.
Yeah, we sometimes call it Godot, Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
So the player, as you can see here, is a scene. So it works differently. So the way that it works is that every kind of item is a scene. And then you can put scenes in scenes to make like a full game. Mm-hmm. So if I go into the player scene now, if I find it here, yeah. So this is just the player. And then if you go in the game, it's here as well. So this game I made in 48 hours for a game jam, actually. Mm-hmm. And if I play it, can you see that or not?
No, it will execute in a different window.
Yeah, it will. There's been a lot of that.
But what's the text language behind Godot, Jack? Is it C? I can't remember what it is.
It uses its own language, actually, called GDScript.
That's right. Yeah, I remember now.
So I can go into the script now. So I'm still sharing that, yeah. If I go into the player, it doesn't actually, the player itself has no code attached to it at all.
Sure. Yeah.
But now if I go into the kinematic body, we've got all this. Yeah. So, but when you look more closely at it, it kind of looks more like Scratch. So, here you're just declaring variables, and here's like a little if bracket, and you can just imagine if you put like a little orange thing around here,
you've
got the block, and that's just adding velocity and kind of animating the sprite. And you've got all of this stuff. But the more that you look at it, here's just an if-else statement. I think once you know one coding language, no matter if it's block-based or not, it's a lot easier to get into the other ones. And I think when I tried to get into the Unity the first time, I didn't quite get that. I thought it was going to be like completely different. But yeah,
for those people watching, so we're looking at Godot here, but you've also got phaser, and you've also got, we promote default, as Craig was saying earlier, and they all look and feel very, very similar. Absolutely. The other thing I'm really intrigued about, Jack, is for me, there's a difference between you and some of the students that I've taught. Okay, and the difference is that students that I've taught in the past seem to hit a brick wall and not be able to get over it. So they're like, I don't know how to do collision detection, or I don't know how to go and get my player to move and collect a key. And when they've collected the key, if they hit the door opens. And they just, although they can break the problem down, they can't kind of get over the sort of, how do I achieve this next step? But you seem to be able to do that very easily. Talk to me about how you do it and the advice that you've got for my students.
So I just keep trying at it. If I get a bug, I just, I keep trying to see if I can fix the bug. And sometimes you might not get the workaround that you want, at which point you kind of have to think, right, I've got this. How do I do something with this instead? And I kind of do that as well. But another thing that really helps is just going through the documentation for the languages. Because sometimes you might think, this is really hard. You might search up, like area collision documentation, and the code's just there, But it is quite hard because you have to know where to look as well.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing then from you is perseverance. Keep trying, keep trying. Keep trying. Don't see it as a brick wall. Don't bury your head in the sand. Say, this is something I can overcome, and enjoy the challenge of being stuck and persevere. That's the first thing I'm hearing. The second thing that I'm hearing is you might not always be able to solve the problem the way you think you can, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just find a new route, change the requirements, or, find an alternative pathway. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Don't be fixated on this is the only solution when perhaps there are other solutions. And the third thing I'm hearing from you is, look, just do some hard work as well. Just Just go and read, watch some tutorials maybe, and immerse yourself. And instead of saying, oh, I can't do this, or I can't be bothered to do this, which is actually what you mean when you say that.
Yeah.
Actually invest some time and, you know, be prepared to do some reading and some research. And the more that you do of those 3 things that you were articulating, the more you're going to get back out of the process and the more rewarding that it is. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, the joy of programming is that I feel like I'm sort of God of my own world. I don't know how to express this, but I'm in control. Everything that happens is due to me and me making the decisions. And I kind of feel not a sense of power, but a sense of achievement, I think, in making a computer do something that it couldn't do before.
That's the thing with coding, is that it's really just kind of, once you break down that wall, once you kind of go, right, I've done that, I've squashed the bug, or I've managed to get this working, it's just so satisfying, because I'm like, yes, I've made this do this, and I've thought about this, and it might have taken me a while, maybe even a few days, but I've got past this, and now I can go on to the next bit, and it's just kind of very satisfying. So with this game that I made for the Game Jam in 48 hours, obviously I couldn't really do as much of that, so there was a lot more of the kind of workaround stuff. But once I got it submitted, it was just kind of like, whoa, I actually did that, you know. I didn't think I could do that, and, you know, it's just,
It's really interesting. One of the founders of Steam, obviously popular games platform, one of the founders of Steam says, you know, the coders of today will be the wizards of tomorrow. He's like, you know, he's like, there is nothing you won't be able to achieve if you learn how to code. And in today's day and age with technology, it just goes to show. I'm going to wrap this up shortly, but it's interesting because the journey you've been on is not massively different to the journey that Dave and I went on. And in our very first videos in this Unscripted series, we did a trip down memory lane and talked about how we first got into coding. In a similar way, I wrote my first computer program at 10, I think Dave a couple of years before me. The difference here is the technology you have available now, being able to get into Scratch and Unreal and Unity, and that's fantastic. Poor Dave and I were doing text-based languages in BASIC, but like you, if we got stuck, we solved it. I remember in that video pulling up the original handbook, Dave, you pulled up the original documentation, and it's the same skills. So I think I was going to finish with a couple of quick things then, Jack. I mean, you've literally, obviously, at the time of recording this, you must be coming up to the last week of term. So you're just leaving year 9.
Last week.
So start your GCSEs next year. I'm assuming or hoping you're taking computer science, are you?
Yeah, definitely.
Are your teachers scared at all about that they're going to teach you next year? Or are they excited by this opportunity?
I'm not sure, actually.
They don't know what they're getting themselves into.
They know about the BAFTA, and I'm just not sure, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unfair question. And I guess really we kind of touched on this already, but just any other, you know, generic advice out there, you know, for students or, you know, who are listening to you now thinking, yeah, you know, I want to be like Jack, I want to get into this level of gaming, I want to start doing these things, because there'll be plenty out there. It's just any other general advice you've got, having been on this journey. And
the two things that I'm going to say, they've probably heard like thousands of times before, but
they haven't heard them from you, they've heard them from teachers, and therefore they turn off.
But just, you know, keep trying. Keep trying, don't just give up, and if you can't do it, see if you can do a workaround, and if you really can't do it, just see if you can start a bit simpler. You know, don't just dive straight into Unity, have a little play around with something like Scratch first. You know, don't be put off by all the bright colors and kind of how it's orientated towards children. That doesn't mean anything really, because at its core, it's still coding, and you can still do amazing things with even Scratch. That is
fantastic advice. I've just got a couple of concluding comments, Craig, and I'll hand it back to you and to finish off. Just an observation from me to you first, Jack, and then just an observation for teachers and students out there. The first thing is we know about you, or we came to know about you because you were the BAFTA finalist, and we happened to know somebody that you were associated with, and therefore they were able to kind of join us together, which is fantastic. But just keep doing what you're doing. Put yourself out there, create a portfolio of work, because in this industry, you're going to get headhunted, and people are going to want you to work in the industry, and you're going to be able to, command the salary that you want and go and get the opportunities that you want, whether that's in the UK, whether that's in the States or anywhere in the world. So just keep putting yourself out there, keep entering these competitions. It doesn't matter, like I was saying earlier, it doesn't matter whether you win because you were a finalist twice. Keep persevering, and you're going to win it. And then, you'll just keep entering these different things and getting your name out there.
Another piece of advice that I've actually got is a website which is a really good portfolio creator actually for games. It's called itch.io. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, I've not heard of that one.
It's a site. It's like an indie game site where you kind of get indie games and stuff, but you can create your own itch.io page. And you can have like a banner and stuff. It's almost like a YouTube channel. You can get followers and stuff. And then you can put your games there, and you can have them free or donate if you want, or paid. And then they're all just kind of put like that in like a kind of grid. And then someone can like go through your stuff and then click on something, go, oh, that's a cool game. Then click off and go click on another one. And it's a really good tool, not just for playing games, but for putting them out there as well.
Yeah, it's really important that you build a portfolio of work so that you're able to then say, I don't know if you've got ambitions of getting into the games industry, but if you have, having that portfolio of work to be able to say, this is what I was doing when I was 7 years old. This is what I was doing when I was 14 years old. This is what I'm doing when I was 21 years old. And this is what I'm doing now. That is so powerful, because although, qualifications, they are important and they allow you to sort of open certain doors. Certainly in this industry, it's about what you can do. And who and just that networking that will get you where you want to be. And then my final sort of concluding comment is for teachers and students out there, which is, you've seen what Jack's doing there. It was a progression from scratch into the Unreal Engine. Jack's teachers do not know how to use the Unreal Engine. It doesn't matter. Get it installed on the school computers. Tell the students, hey, we've got this new tool. I don't know how to use it, but you could work it out. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And just don't be frightened of letting students know more than you. Just get out. Couldn't do what Jack's doing in Unreal, because, as I said earlier, I don't have the time to invest in the Unreal Engine, but that wouldn't bother me. I would be more than happy for Jack to be leading a club in my school, getting other students using the Unreal Engine, and letting students lead students is really powerful. And if you're a student out there who's frustrated with your computer science teachers and your computer science department at your school, put forward some ideas. Say, hey, look, do you know you could do that? We could do this with the Unreal Engine, and set that club up yourself. Have a chat to your teachers, and I bet they'd be more than happy to let you lead something if it doesn't require them to have to lead it for themselves. So anyway, just a bit of advice out there for me.
Great, brilliant. No, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I think that's been one of the most fascinating episodes we've done on our Unscripted series so far. It's been a real pleasure coming on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Look forward to sort of more stuff from you. Yeah. And, maybe we'll have you back in another 6-8 months or another couple of years from now when you've got the final, and we'll bring you back on. But thank you very much for giving out your time, Jack. It's been really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.